Recently you've had to come face to face with some individuals who are some of the most outspoken and prejudiced people against the LGBT community on the planet. I was wondering, when you are face to face with that type of prejudice, whether you found it more effective to argue logically and kind of expose the balmy facts that they're using to justify their prejudices, or whether you find it better to appeal to the basic humanity that they should be recognizing in as people, or you find it actually it's almost impossible to convince someone out of their prejudices on a face-to-face meeting.
I think, I can't remember exactly what occasion you're thinking of, but obviously I have bumped into those who question to the point of bigotry other people's lifestyles that are absolutely none of their business. But I think that's why nature gave us, or enough of a percentage of us, wit, or at least what might pass for it, because it is an enormous deflector of arrogance, brutality, viciousness, and the rest of it. And I think I learned that at school. Amongst the many disadvantages, there were some advantages of having been sent away at the age of 7, 200 miles away from home, to a prep school, and then to go on to another boarding school, what they call confusingly a public school, which is far from public, of course. And I remember the vague possibility of being bullied. I discovered this brilliant line, which I thought up, and I hugged myself, and I thought I'm going to try this out, when that wretched Hutchinson, if he comes anywhere near me with a stick or a stone, or starts to give me a half Nelson, twist my arm or something like that. So I did, and fortunately it was in a full quad, the little house quad where people played quad hockey on a bicycle, which is a fabulous game. You should play it in your college. The garden stewards would be thrilled. So what you do is you wait for them to come up to you and start reaching. No, don't touch me, you'll give me an erection. And it's fantastic. Oh, bloody hell! Oh, God, oh, Jesus, like that. So there is a necessity to take, and of course not everybody has the confidence to do that. Those of us who can speak up and are at least outwardly brave enough to confront a bully are kind of obliged to do so on behalf of those that aren't. And I think I have some heroes, some of whom have become friends, like dear Serena McKellen, who was here last week, I think. Another is Zach Quinto, who's a wonderful guy. He played Mr. Spock in the Star Trek movies, and he played that horrible monster in Heroes who kept taking other people's powers, which was really mean. And he's an unbelievably great fellow. And I've known him for 5 years or something. And I've always known he was gay, and he was not out. And this is a very puzzling thing with American film stars. You know some who are gay, and they don't come out, and their agents say, the agent who will be, gayer than 10 Christmases at once will say, you can't dare come out. If you come out, you're not my client. You are dead. You are dead in the water. And you think, it's just unspeakable. And so, but it's not for me to judge. It's never. It's not. You can't bully people into coming out. It's as irresponsible as being bullied into going back into your shell, really. But he wrote a most beautiful blog about 2 years ago, where he said, I can no longer stand by when children are killing themselves because they are bullied, and the word faggot is still ringing in their ears. This has just happened the day before. Child killed himself, some school in Middle America, because he had been so tormented, so unable to cope, no heroes to look up to. And Zach wrote this fabulous piece. It's just beautiful. So he said, I'm going to tell you now, I'm gay. And I'm so proud to be. If that means anything to any single child out there, then I'm very proud. And sorry, you can see I'm all tearing up now. But it so matters. And in the face of any amount of brute, ignorant hostility, as the ancient metaphor has it, no matter how dark it is, the smallest light is visible. No matter how light it is, a bit of dark is nothing. And you have to remember that it is worth doing the right thing. Not necessarily for yourself or for brownie points, to be admired, but because somewhere out there is somebody who will want to hear it. In fact, talking of Star Trek, and I'll finish on this, because we are, after all, in Oxford University, which for all of the Burlington Club and all the rest of it, is a seat of learning, and an estimable one. We have to return to Nietzsche. And I don't know if you've read The Birth of Tragedy, one of his most excellent books. But he argued that tragedy was born in ancient Greece out of a spirit that the Athenians had as they grew up as a special tribe that somehow managed to combine two qualities of their 12 Olympic deities. I've always thought 12 gods is much better than one, incidentally. I can't understand why you would just have one god. It seems so peculiarly odd. But to have one of war and one of love and one of mischief, like Hermes or whatever. Anyway, they worshipped above all in Athens, and you can see it in the friezes of the Parthenon, and obviously the very name of the Parthenon and the very name of the city. Pallas Athene, who in the Roman equivalent is Minerva, who was the goddess of wisdom, and they worshipped Apollo, who was a goddess of the god of harmony and music and mathematics and rhetoric. And the other god, who was really, really important to them, whom they sort of made a joke of worshipping, but actually was very serious, was Dionysus, the god of wine and festival and riot, absolute riot. And Nietzsche said, what tragedies do is they look at the fact that all of us humans are torn in two. A part of us is reasonable, harmonious, seeking the truth, calculating, using mathematics, instruments of thought like algebra and philosophy, instruments of governance like justice and democracy. But another part of us wants to wrench our clothes off and dive into the grapes and make slurping, horrible noises of love and discord and laugh at the harmony and be bestial, because we are composed of those two qualities. They didn't know of our DNA, but they kind of sussed that that was true of us. We were born to be like that. And Nietzsche very persuasively argues that's what Greek tragedy is. That it's like the case of Oedipus, for example, is a very reasonable and extraordinary man who's constantly counting, whose very, very perfect Athenian qualities he has, ruling his city, Thebes. But who has a secret that even he doesn't know, that he's composed of incest. He killed his father, and he then bedded his wife Jocasta. And it's an extraordinary mix of a man who, when he discovers the truth about himself, goes insane and stabs out his own eyes because he cannot bear the idea of being alive and seeing himself. And Nietzsche's idea is that that's what we like as humans, in a sense that part of us cannot, as T.S. Eliot put it, we cannot bear too much reality. And my theory, and this is where I'm going to go drive you a bit nuts, is that this is what Star Trek is about. And I have to take you back, and of course you're all too old to remember the original Star Trek series, but it's true of the Next Generation, and it's kind of true of the films as well. And that is that Gene Roddenberry, who created it, gave us these characters, Spock and Bones, who were absolutely opposed. Spock was reason, logic, calculation, science, and an absolute inability to feel. And indeed a sense that feeling was a weakness. And you had Scotty, who was all gut reaction. Why, you green-blooded monster. Sorry, not Scotty, Bones. I mean, you green-blooded monster. And constantly arguing. And in the middle, trying to be a perfect mix of two of them, was Captain Kirk, who wanted the humanity of Bones, but some of the reasoning judgment of Spock. Not only that, the planets they visit are either so perfectly logical that we kill our children when they become 20. Once we have harvested their seed, because then we shall have a harmonious existence. And Kirk says, this is wrong. You cannot live like this. This is quite wrong. Or they go to a planet which is full of Klingons and is just warlike and has no reason at all. And he tries to mediate and force together what is beautiful and logical about us and what is horrific and bestial in us. And each one of us, if we examine ourselves, knows there is an inner beast who is capable of almost anything, in mind at least, and there is an inner monk, an inner harmonious figure, whether you posit them as a Tibetan monk or some sort of beautiful hippie with a flower in their ear. Doesn't matter, but it's just all love and peace and reason and sweetness, and we know that sometimes one half gets the best of us. So in that sense, we're all bipolar. So we dedicate this to the lovely head, Mind Your Head charity. Yep, we're drawing it together. We're drawing together the threads of the evening. So go forth, be mad, be utterly proud of who you are, whatever you are, and for God's sake, try everything. As Arnold Bax, the composer, said, in this life you try everything once, except incest and country dancing. So I leave you on that note. Thank you.